Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Aquí tienen el horario para hoy, martes, el 28 de febrero. You guys didn't have any homework due for today, just to continue to work on your project, which is due at the beginning of next week. It is the Chapter 2AB elective assessment. You guys can click on that assignment, and watch this video here for more detailed instructions. You also have a few examples that your classmates were kind enough to share with you, folks that submitted this project already and gave their permission to share it with you guys as an example. Due for next class is your homework for next class, core workbook pages 56 and 57. You guys are going to use your notes from pages 140 and 142. You can access the PDF by clicking here and pulling it up. You can annotate it, type in your responses, you can print it out, or just simply fill in the blanks in your notebook, the answers in your notebook, not having to write out the whole sentence. And for more detailed instructions on that assignment, you can watch this video here. Daily objective for today, to distinguish the use of ir and ser in the simple past tense, to talk about what things were like and where you went in the past. Also to identify the irregular conjugations of the verbs hacer, tener, estar, and poder in the simple past tense, to talk about what you were able to do or had to do, or where you were in the past. Your warm-up is practicing the notes that we took last class, or practicing your familiarity with those notes, and those are the conjugations of the verbs ser and ir in the preterite. Look at your warm-up here in just a moment. We'll take notes on page 142. Watch the guided review and practice activity, the Grammativa video. We'll knock out the pair practice, exercise 19 on page 142, and start your homework again, core workbook pages 56 and 57. All right, for your warm-up for today, fill in the blank with the correct conjugation of either ir or ser, and then indicate whether ir or ser is being used. We'll do the first three together. Tú fuiste al partido de los guerreros el viernes pasado. We're using fuiste because the question's in the to form. And then actually the verb ir is being used here, the verb to go, because we're talking about going to the game. El partido. And then guerreros are the warriors in Spanish. Guerreros. All right, number 2. El año pasado, mi hermana mayor fue. Ella, mi hermana, ella fue estudiante en LMC. And whether that's ir or ser, that's going to be the verb ser, because we're talking about her being a student. We're describing what she was like in the past. Number 3, and then we'll move on to the next activity. Number 3, mis amigos y yo fuimos al centro comercial ayer por la tarde. The verb ir being used here because we're talking about going to someplace. All right, now I've got the rest of your warm-up there. Numbers 4, 5, and 6, filling in the blank with the correct form of ir or ser, and then indicate whether ir or ser is being used based on these context clues. Locations or events for ir, and then for ser, it's going to be one of those descriptive adjectives or characteristics. All right, for the rest of today, we're going to go over the grammar on page 142. On page 142, you guys have the conjugations of the verbs hacer, tener, estar, and poder. So I want you guys to add to your guided notes. And if you guys go to the module for chapter 2b, and you scroll into the middle of that module, you'll see the notes, the guided notes that I gave you guys at the beginning of the semester. For the preterite, or simple past tense, we have our regular AR, ER, and IR endings. And then what we're going to fill in today is the irregular endings here, this third table from the top. And then you can see there are a few verbs there listed below. We're going to identify what the irregular stems are for those verbs. So using this part of the guided notes, let's go ahead and fill in that information. So in the conjugation chart there that I just referred to right here, where it says llena las tablas con las terminaciones de los verbos irregulares, let's fill in these boxes with the following endings. E in the yo form, so just the letter E goes in this box. E in the yo form, iste in the tu form, o in the él, ella, usted form, imos in the nosotros form, and hieron in the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. Iste, o, imos, hieron. Those are the endings that you guys are going to add into these boxes. And the vosotros, of course, you can disregard. And these are irregular verbs in the past, in the simple past tense. We call them preterite. These verbs are also irregular in English in that we don't just add the ed ending to those verbs to make them in the past, like the verb to do. In English, we don't say doed, adding ed to the verb do, we say did. The verb to do is irregular in English in the past and also in Spanish as well. Tener is to have. Let's say halved, we say had. Was or were instead of beed. And instead of saying canned, poder, the verb to be able to, that would be could in the past. So these are all irregular in English as well as Spanish. All right, now I want you to identify the verbs hacer, tener, estar, and then poder here. And I want you to go ahead and identify the irregular stems. Write the irregular stems next to those verbs. So next to the verb hacer, you're going to write the irregular stem, H-I-C. Your irregular stem for tener, T-U-V. And your irregular stem for hacer, for estar, E-S-T-U-V. And the irregular stem for poder is P-U-D. Hacer is the verb to do. Tener is the verb to have. Estar is the verb to be. Poder is the verb to be able to. And notice that all these verbs do not carry accent marks in the preterite. All right, now that we've gone over what these verbs are, now let's talk about the context that they're typically used in. Hacer is the verb to do, and we talked before about using it when we were talking about your activities and interests. Hace plus time expressions to indicate how long you've been doing something. And this was the formula that you all used to talk about how long you've been doing your extracurricular activities and things you guys enjoy doing in your free time. Hace, followed by a length of time, for example, 2 años. Que, and then that activity, that verb, is going to be conjugated, well, in this case it was in the present tense, right? Telling how long you've been doing something. So that's the verb hacer. Back to page 142. Tener, the verb to have, we've used it in a variety of situations. Tener, we used it at the very beginning of the year to talk about your class schedule, right? Yo tengo is the verb tener in the yo form. Yo tengo la clase de inglés en la primera hora. Yo tengo la clase de historia en la segunda hora. Yo tengo la clase de español en la tercera hora. So, yo tengo meaning I have, and then your classes. But we also talked about how tener can be used with que, this expression tener que, to have to, and then followed by an infinitive to say what you have to do. For example, tenemos que escribir mucho en la clase de inglés. We have to, nosotros tenemos que, we have to write a lot in English class. So, tener que, and then followed by an infinitive. The verb poder is the verb to be able to, 27 actually. Poder is one of those stem-changing verbs. And the verb poder itself means to be able to do something. So, if you remember from Spanish 1 or maybe middle school, you had a teacher that asked you, or required of you to ask in Spanish to go to the bathroom. Like, ask in Spanish, can I go to the bathroom? And that question would be, ¿Puedo ir al baño? Can I go to the restroom? Well, puedo is the verb poder, as you can see, conjugated in the yo form. Poder is to be able to. Yo puedo is I can. Or, in the case of a question, ¿Puedo ir al baño? Can I? So poder is always going to be followed by a verb. Poder ir. Puedo ir al baño. Or yo puedo tocar el piano. I can play the piano. Puedo tocar el piano. Poder always going to be followed by a verb. And then the verb estar, that's the last verb there in this sequence of verbs here on page 142. We've talked about the verb hacer is the verb to do, and it's used in that expression hace, followed by a period of time. Tener is the verb to have, and it's used in the expression tener que, followed by another verb. Estar is the verb to be, and it's used to talk about being able to do something, to be, in terms of your feelings or emotions. We talked about poder, being able to do something, and always followed by a verb, and then estar, I was going to pull up, forgive me. We talked about ser and estar at the beginning of the semester, and how estar is normally used to talk about what something is feeling, what someone is feeling, their feelings or emotions, or location. That's estar. How someone is doing at a moment, their feeling or emotion, and then where someone or something is located. So, armed with that information, those context clues, let's take a look at exercise 19, and then we'll take a look at your homework. Oops, 142. Apologies. All right, exercise 19. Rosalinda invitó a varios amigos a ver una película en su casa a las 5, pero nadie llegó. Completa cada frase con la forma apropiada del verbo estar, tener o poder para explicar por qué no llegaron. So, completa cada frase con la forma apropiada del verbo estar, tener o poder para explicar por qué no llegaron. Filling in the blanks here with the verbs estar, tener o poder. Now your clue for estar, because it's the verb to be, is going to be a location. To be at some place. Like for number 1, Fernando estar en la biblioteca por 3 horas. Biblioteca would be our clue to use estar. And then if we're talking about Fernando, él estuvo. Fernando estuvo en la biblioteca por 3 horas. He had to write a really long report, un informe muy largo. So we're going to do the verb tener here. That's our clue for tener, is the expression tener que, and then another verb. We're still talking about Fernando, so we're going to use the same form as number 1, and that would be tuvo. Fernando tuvo que escribir un informe muy largo. And then number 3, Jorge y Patty no. We have the verb venir, to be able to. And in this case, it's a verb, the verb venir, to be able to come over, So anytime we have a verb coming right after the blank, we know it's the verb poder that's going to be used, because poder is to be able to do something. In this case, to be able to come over. So poder, and now we're talking about Jorge and Patty. That's a plural subject, and that's how we get the answer pudieron. Patty y Jorge no pudieron venir. All right, that's exercise 19. You guys can finish the rest on your own, taking a look and seeing if estar, tener, or poder should be used. Your context clue for estar, locations. Your context clue for tener is going to be que and an infinitive coming right after the blank. And your context clue for poder is always going to be a verb coming right after the blank. All right, homework for next class is core pages 56 and 57. And you guys are going to want to make sure to have that in by next class and have it ready to review. And you can watch the video that is embedded there for more instructions. Don't forget to continue working on your project. For Chapter 2AB, the elective assessment there, you can watch that video and check out some student samples there for more guided instructions. And I will see y'all in clase. Ciao, muchachos.